as you notice that starting to feel where in your body that breath is located. So I think we just went live on YouTube. Again, if you're on Instagram and you have trouble hearing my voice or Taylor's voice, you can tune in via the YouTube link that is in Taylor's bio. So I'm just going to situate myself so that I can be seen by both cameras and double check that this is working. Thanks so much for joining us. This class community of virtual folks has been really inspiring. Taylor and myself have taken a number of classes online, and I'm really surprised by the kind of unification of energy that we can feel in distance and practice. It's really incredible. A little background on this practice. It's a practice that Taylor and I have been teaching. It's open level, so any level mover can take it. We've been teaching this for the past 4 years, and it's normally a 2-hour class, but we're condensing it to be 1 hour. So we will move through things a lot faster. We'll also make sure to get our heart rate up a little bit, and also just have time to explore our bodies. Again, everything that we communicate and we offer is for you to filter through your own agency, through your own lens of movement. That being said, you can just listen. You can listen and watch. You can just watch, and you can listen to your own playlists. It's up to you. But really just take this hour to forget, to remember, to release, to take in energy. It really is for you. So I'm gonna repeat myself again. I'm Anna. This is AJ. You just saw Taylor. Let's just get started. We are going to start out just with a little kind of shifting of weight in our feet. Starting to sense the pads of our feet. Starting to sense the bones underneath that pad. The kind of fleshy, squishy surface of our fascial network that supports the domes of our arches. And in this kind of shifting, you can start to notice, how are your eyes today? Are they clouded and veiled? Are they internal? Are you seeing very pinpointed things? Are you seeing a more kind of open landscape? And just playing with your sight while you're sensing the squishing in your feet. Sensing how you can bring your focus up close to right in front of your nose and then send it far away. And noticing how you can shift that like a butterfly, moving or floating on one object. And maybe taking a moment and then floating to another space. We'll move through a lot of kind of internal and external impetuses. Right now we're trying to layer both. So we're layering the sensing of the weight in our feet, and we're layering this kind of optical filter on top. As we do this, just starting to sense our breath in our body, adding another layer, the sense of taking in that breath through the soles of our feet and emptying that breath out back through that portal. Maybe imagining that breath, as it enters through the soles of our feet, takes on a color, or it takes on a light, and it's starting to fill our bones, And as we send it back down through the feet, it still stays charged in our body. You can start to move in whatever way kind of facilitates or assists that. Sending the breath in, charging further up now through the knees, and sending the light, the energy back down through our feet. Bringing it in, charging the thighs, and then sending it back out through the knees, into the ankles, into the feet. Drawing it in. Now it passes through our hips into our pelvis. It kind of swirls around in the pool of our pelvis. And sending it back down through the thighs, the knees, the ankles. Now sending that breath in, it's filling up the pelvis into the solar plexus. And the solar plexus allows for it to swirl and expand in the front and back of our body. And then it passes back down through the pelvis, empties out through the legs and into the feet. Now moving up through the legs, into the pelvis, into the solar plexus, into the clavicles, and feeling it in our wings. Maybe it's reaching out through our arms now and allowing it to pass back down into the soles of the feet. This next one we're filling up all the way through the pelvis, solar plexus, the wings, the throat, and now up through the throat into the dome of the head. It's kind of swirling, this light, this color is swirling through our whole insides. It's cleaning out all the debris, all the cobwebs. And then it's passing back through, it's emptying all those things out through our feet. And sending it back up now through the whole body. And as you do this, you can start to move freely through this kind of feeling of being a container of light, being a container of color, a container of energy. It's like our container is full now, and with each breath, we're charging it even further. We're sending it out past ourselves. It's creating a halo around our head. It's maybe sending out a nice tail. It's extending past our toe. Taking time to explore that with your own breath waves. Letting it also feel like a time to yawn through the body, like this light that reaches out past us allows for our flesh to melt and stretch. Allows for our joints to fold deeper. It allows for our fingers to become activated. And let's actually bring a little activation into those hands, kind of like we're squeezing silly putty in the air all around us. We're kind of massaging the space. As you're doing this, how is this reflecting in the wings of your body, in those shoulder blades? How can you use this now too in feet, in these squishy feet? Kind of like we're now both reaching up and grabbing the putty with our arms, but we're also sending our toes and our feet down through the same material. Letting our fascial network kind of stretch and yawn and connect. And taking a second now to also maybe just speed it all up. Kind of like our movement was on a dial. We're just moving it a little quicker now. Again, it doesn't have to look like any of us in the space. Just interpreting the material through your own lens. Still keeping the hands alive, the feet alive. Thinking about the armpits and the shoulder blades and the light inside of you that you can send out through the space. For 3, for 2, for 1, and 0, we're just going to take that walk again. Maybe if you're in your house, you can stroll through to a next room and come back. Walk outside, come back in. And with this walk, just starting to find a little bit of a dropping into the weight of the legs. You can feel kind of like sloppy, maybe lethargic. I've been feeling very much like this. Feeling like, almost like there's these little strings on our body. There's these little strings that we can pull in different directions through this walk or this march. It's like, maybe it's on the knee, maybe it's on the hand, maybe it's on the nose, maybe it's on the back, maybe it's on the ear. Letting yourself kind of discombobulate your body for a moment. Almost like you are a puppet. In this walk. And you can always come back to this walk. You can always come back to this kind of like goofy, sloppy walk. Feeling it on the knees. Ooh. And letting this walk kind of find a little bit more of a bounce. Noticing where the breath has shifted in the body. Finding that little bounce in the pelvis, in the feet. And maybe just speeding it up a little bit. Finding this little bounce in our pelvis. Letting our blood start to boil. Letting our breath start to quicken. Maybe this bounce turns into little shakes. Not yet really leaving the floor. Maybe we start to twist a little, just a little bit longer. Just a little bit longer. Thinking about that light we had inside us, and now it's liquid, and it's kind of sloshing into our body. It's sloshing into different parts of our container. Maybe it comes out through the arm, comes out through the head. Can kind of like kick out the leg. Can kick out the pelvis and the head. Expand and contract it in whatever capacity is available to you. I obviously have a limitation with a microphone, but you can expand and contract it into many different ways. Maybe even also starting to layer in that puppet in this sloshy dance. So you've got your sloshing container, and then you've got this ability to kind of have these strings be pulled in different directions. Thinking about that colorful fluid. letting the ceiling drop a little bit now. Still feeling how we can maybe slow down and slosh. But the ceiling has dropped. Significantly. Feeling how you can spread that color in the pelvis, into the legs. Feeling how you can spread that color through the torso, even lower now, lower in the legs. Lower ceiling. Even lower, you can start to find tiny collapses and building back up. Letting those tiny collapses drop you further and further down to the ground. Continuing, the ceiling is now maybe 7 inches above you. The ceiling is now maybe 4 inches above you. Still feeling how that fluid, that light fluid, is passing through your body now that you're closer to the ground.
Continuing to sense the fluid as you find a more perhaps horizontal space or a lower orientation to space. Maybe you're in your house. You can't lay completely horizontally. Just imagine that your bubble, your sphere that you're dancing inside of is shrinking and taking you to this lower space. Continue to sense that gooey liquid covering your form, covering your parts. As if we're not just lying down, but we're continuing to spread. As if our bodies are infinite. They extend beyond our fleshy vessel. They radiate out the walls of your house or out the windows of your room. They spill into your kitchen, they spill onto the street. Just bathe in that spreading, that submission to gravity. Feeling the back of your skull resting further into the floor, or whatever part of your body is in contact with the floor. Sensing that bony landmark or that patch of flesh sinking further into the ground. With this introduction of a new rhythm, let's allow micro movements to enter our body. Perhaps it's the soft wiggling of a finger or soft opening and closing of the eyes. Perhaps it's a soft extension and relaxation of the ankles. But as this groovy beat entering, let's allow these micro movements to radiate out a bit more. As if we're now starting to reform our skeleton from that submission, that spreading place. Reigniting our muscular systems. parts as we bring more motion now. Let's bring in more rotation, more fold and unfold of our parts, as if we're evolving out of that puddle that we made on the floor, sprouting up like a plant. Little offshoots of our stems, more vines are sprouting out and spiraling out. This reminds me of something Anna and I talk about a lot, is body as a landscape. I like to imagine different landscapes that I've seen or future landscapes that I haven't seen, putting my body into those forms. Many mountains, many valleys, many rivers. Let's continue to sprout our limbs and grow from this puddle that we made on the floor. Thinking of your spine as a serpent in this place. That the spine can have motion and can move inside of our torso. Allowing that serpent spine to prompt more of those movements, more sprouting of limbs. Perhaps that sphere or those walls that shrunk us down to that low space are being pushed away again or expanded. And feeling that you can indulge longer in places that might feel nice. Perhaps you feeling a sensation of stretch or pleasant pressure in different places. Spend a longer time there. If you'd like, taking an extra breath. Let's continue to expand that sphere around us. Feeling the edges of our skin and of our form, also the edges of our range, sending our parts out and farther away in a distal relationship and bringing them closer to a more proximal relationship.
Starting to sense how you can send the bones through the skin as you grow new limbs and allow for your bubble to grow further and further away from the ground. This sensation of the fingers poking out, the tips of the fingertips. The sensation of the heel bone reaching out and pushing against the flesh of the foot. The sensation of the sits bones reaching out into the glutes, into the skin, and the ribs pushing against the skin with each inhale and exhale. We're gonna get a little groovy with this too, allowing for that kind of luscious feeling of the bones pushing through. And then starting to just kind of have moments where you remember that sloshing pelvis, or you remember that bounce in this.
Taking that sloshy pelvis image that Anna has given us, letting that perhaps be the motoring behind our groove. If you can hear the music at home, or you're listening to maybe your own music, let that music kind of enter your body and be like the fuel to that engine, that groove. I'm going to diminish my groove for the sake of the mic, but we can let our groove grow. Imagining that we're adding a bit more fuel to those motors, to those engines. those motors, those engines that are driving our groove, let's add a bit more fuel to them. Allowing that sloshy sensation to continue to affect your groove. It's okay to be a little sloppy here in your groove, a little flaily, a little flicky and bouncy, bouncing between the chairs in your kitchen or bouncing across the rug in your living room. Let's just enjoy this groove for a few breaths.
Allowing for it even to have moments of kind of like punching at soft pillows in the air. Almost like you've been given permission to have a full-blown hissy fit. So really let yourself fall into that here.
Allow it to carry you through whatever space you have that you're working with. Like Anna said, maybe it carries you through a different part of the house. Let's keep the groove alive. But as if the intensity of our groove is on a volume knob, let's turn it down a little bit. Let's make a tiny groove. A subtle groove like that. That groove, at least for me, that I have sometimes at the grocery store or on the bus. Like I'm feeling the song I'm listening to, but I'm trying to behave a little bit with my groove. And now sense those same motors, those motors that were driving our larger groove. Can we stay tethered to those places in this smaller groove? Let's see if we can make it even quieter. Like we're trying to listen to a song on volume 1 or volume 2. Now let's feed a little more fuel, a little more volume to that groove. Maybe increasing it to volume 3 or 4. Still staying tethered to what's driving that groove. The groove can be isolated. We can move the groove into our chest, into our shoulders, or we can keep it in our pelvis, or we can put it in our head or in another limb. Let's go from level 4 to level 5 of our groove, as if we're on, let's say that's 50% of 100, that's 5 out of 10, halfway of our maximum volume. Whatever that means to you, that might mean the intensity of the groove, the speed of the groove. Let's go to 60% of our groove. Letting ourselves be sloppy, letting ourselves feel the change of temperature of our skin. Can we keep our senses alive during this groove? Can we smell the air? Taste the air around us. What's the temperature? Feeling our garment. Let's move to 70%. Let's be with our bones and our skin and our hair. Let's be with our garments in this groove. Feeling our flesh bounce and move around. Feeling our garments bellow and waft. Let's go to 80%. Turning the groove up. Turning the volume up on the groove. 90%.
Letting your eyes start to defocus, shifting your perspective very quickly to your own body, to something else in space, maybe following a body part.
Let's move to 95%.
Releasing your jaw, releasing your asshole, releasing your tongue, finding your breath.
And for the last bit of this track, let's push that to 100%, the maximum groove you have for today.
Remembering all the ways you've ever moved, all the ways you ever wished to move, all the ways you moved in dreams, all the ways you moved in your daydreams, all the ways you moved when you thought you had it, all the ways you moved when you thought you hadn't. Letting this be a moment to send those things far outside of your body, far away from you.
You can and you have space. Try even getting off the floor a bit. A little jump, a little hop.
And as we wind this group back, just kind of having a couple moments of just like sending it out a couple times, like,
That sending out of the groove is like letting that groove burn off. We're not just shutting the engine off, but we're giving it less fuel, turning the volume down a little bit on the music of your groove.
finding 2 feet in a parallel position. We're just gonna feel those squishy feet. Close your eyes for a second with those 2 feet underneath you and just start to shift your weight along the pads, the edges of your feet. Thinking about emptying tension out through the soles again. Emptying out the cobwebs, filling up with light. And coming back to a center position in this shifting, we're just gonna find a couple of nice deep knee bends. Just feeling how we can send our pelvis down and grow a tail out of our sits bones, in between our sits bones. On this next one, we're gonna inhale up as if 2 people are holding our wrists at the top. And then they're gonna cut those strings and we're gonna roll down.
A nice juicy roll down through our spine. Thinking of that serpent spine again, that serpent is coiling, winding in, going to whatever feels like the good maximum for you in that fold. Letting the weight pour out of our skull, as if we're pouring water out of our head. Letting that facilitate a bit more space and release into that fold. Whenever you feel like you've had enough and you're ready, bending those knees again and finding a nice unfurling of the spine, returning to verticality, returning to that humanoid form.
We're gonna repeat that one more time with a couple of soft bends in the knees. Again, thinking about sending that energy down through the soles of the feet. And then lifting up on an inhale those wrists as if 2 strings are attached to them, and then they get cut as we roll down. Except on this one, we're not gonna hit the bottom. We're gonna ripple up through our spine and come back down. Feeling this kind of thick snake on the inside of us and how it's kind of sliding up and down, rippling. And now we're gonna reverse it. Feeling that thick snake undulating through our bodies. Nice. And then finding our 2 feet, we're just gonna take one hand and allow for that hand to kind of take over initiation of all movement. Keeping our 2 feet planted and then letting our other body parts respond, but the initiator is the dominant one, is this right hand. We can
See.
think about thickening that hand. You can think about swinging that hand, cutting that hand, curling, grabbing in the space.
Carving through that atmosphere around your body with that hand, seeing this hand as a wing or another tail or more fins, carving through that thick air around us, or even wafting away the air, disturbing the air around our forms a bit. A little bit more on that first side, whichever side you're using for your arm, or your half body half.
And then just letting that hand come down and letting your other hand reach it. Maybe noticing that one arm is actually longer than the other now. Maybe taking a walk with that one long arm, or a walk around yourself. How it feels like kind of one half of your body is kind of like sloping off. And finding those 2 feet again, we're just gonna repeat that on the other side. Letting the left side dominate now. Does it bring up another energy in you? Is this your good side? Was the other one your bad side? Is this your strong side? Is this your weak side? Do you not have duality in your sides? Are you a little bit more spectral?
Carving again through that air around our body with this other side. Imagining that you're trying to greet that air with every patch of skin on that arm or that side of body. Thinking of armpit or underneath the forearm, underneath the back of the arm, the tricep. Moving that through that space.
And letting that arm greet the other arm. Maybe noticing the effort. Noticing maybe how your shoulders might have dropped a couple of inches. And instead of taking a walk, we're just going to shift our weight into one leg. And we're going to take that leg out into space. We're also going to feel like a really buoyant pelvis, a really buoyant standing leg. Feeling how you can kind of drop your weight into this leg. Nice. How you can release your pelvis, release your asshole here, really, like legitimately. Think about sending a tail outside and just play with a little bit of a curious other leg. Like this leg is kind of like a little searchlight that you're sending out around you. And whenever you feel like you're dropping off that leg, just finding that buoyant pelvis, finding that buoyant standing leg. Also thinking of how can you send the spine through this? How can you send the spine as an extension of the leg through space, softening, but also reaching out. Sending that searchlight out of the top and the bottom. And feeling okay to kind of like mess up, fall off. Nice, and then finding both legs again. Does one leg feel longer? Taking a walk. Like sometimes after I do this, I feel like I have a peg leg. I'm like, and finding that opposite side, just dropping into that opposite leg. And sending that searchlight out around you. Also sending that spine around you. Arms are free, sending those free arms around. Playing with stability, but also playing with like lack of stability. How do you come back from this force that's whipped you off your leg? From this force that's changed your circumstance? How do you come back? Nice, finding those 2 feet again. And taking another walk. As you take this walk, regarding the space again, feeling a soft push in the top of your head, we're going to now consider our head and neck as the fifth limb, with our 2 feet underneath us. Thinking of the head, neck, and spine as a fifth limb that's another searchlight that we can kind of open and close and shine onto other parts of the space. As you shine this searchlight, also consider the shadow in your body. Deepening in the crevices.
Using that image of the shadow in the crevices to find more fold and bend through our torso and our extremities. I'm reminded again of those landscape images. Many mountains, many valleys, many shadow, many light peaks. Allowing yourself to find a bit of fluidity in the folds.
How far can you drop down in this shadow building a cave? How can you splay your whole body to open it up? To send light out of it, to expose it, to conceal it. Using this to take you through an exploration of your light sources in your body. So we explored that head and neck. We also were sending those legs out as searchlights, sending those laser beam arms out.
Picking a portion of your body or a bony landmark or a patch of skin to put that searchlight. For me right now, I'm thinking of the crown of my head being that searchlight or that spotlight. And let's move it to a new place. Maybe for you it's the back of the knee. For me it's in one of my shoulders. Thinking of shining that light. You might have to translate your body and rotate it in different ways to hit different surfaces with that searchlight. Like a lighthouse that's oscillating over a vast sea. Let's find a new place now to put that searchlight. Maybe you're thinking of it at the tailbone or in the bottom of one of the feet or out of one of your eyes. Not being concerned about if the movement we're doing is interesting or if we're creating choreographic frameworks, just thinking about the many sensations that our body has, all that kinesthetic information, somatic information that our body gives us every day, and all the images that Anna and I and we all have seen in our heads or have found during this, letting those carry us through sensation. Let's keep putting that searchlight in different places, maybe in an elbow or in your heart. Just for a bit longer with the searchlight.
Feeling how you can send those searchlights soaring through the space. Maybe that's by dropping into gravity or finding spins.
Finding a new place to put that searchlight now. Sending it over a vast sea or sending it up into the sky or down through the floor. Maybe shining it on, if you're dancing with someone else, shining it on them for a moment. Imagining the light hitting their body, their skin, or maybe on your cat.
And within this, just finding moments of kind of crystallization. Crystallization of form and reignition from that space.
With this introduction of crystallization, we're going to move through a new structure, new set of images. For Anna and I, crystallization tends to look something like stillness or space hold, or imagining that our posture, our form is crystallizing in space. And how do we emerge from and to the new crystallization? Spending as little or as long as you want in those crystal forms. A sense of stop and start maybe comes to mind, or again, for me, it's that sense of emergence. How do we spill from one crystal form to the new? Yeah, perhaps you're challenging yourself by creating forms that challenge your rigor or push your sense of dimension or orientation to space. If it's there for you, take a more rigorous, crystallized form.
And considering the relics that you're leaving behind, as if each crystallization remained in the space after you left and initiated and crystallized into another form. Like there were thousands of images of you around the space that you can move through, you can move around, you can craft, you can build off of.
Letting your breath be present in the forms. Maybe your inhales and your exhales are like your dance partner in this start and stop motif. An exhale being like a melting of those crystals, and an inhale being like a solidification of them again. Or the opposite. Let's move through crystal forms just a bit longer, letting our breath influence those forms. Perhaps challenging your orientation to space. Trying a crystallized form in a lower plane of space, or maybe using the furniture around you or the structures around you as a way to emphasize or extend that crystallized form. Or even just finding a posture that you're familiar with that brings you comfort. And allowing a few breaths to go by before you shift and find a new crystallized form. Playing with the dynamics of your shifts. Perhaps you want to find a very slow motion way of shifting, sensing every squish of the flesh as you roll the weight over it. Or perhaps a more swift sense of shift. Have a little fun with your dynamic palette a bit.
That initiation of shift. Are you initiating from your belly button? Are you initiating from the edge, your jaw? Kind of playing between internal and external shifting stimuli.
Let's keep this diligent sense of shifting and form and add a filter to it. Ann and I talk a lot about filters, which a lot of people have talked about filters in their work or in their pedagogy. We think of it as like a qualitative filter. Like when you put a filter on a Instagram photo, it's the same photo, the same composition, but the quality or the mood changes. Let's put a filter of kind of liquefaction over our shifting from one crystal form to the next. As if that space between the stillness postures is like a thick liquid. Pushing the bony landmarks and the patches of flesh through that thick liquid, arriving to new crystallized forms.
adding a ringing into these shifts. So moving from liquid into wringing out the body of liquid.
Like you wring out a cloth or a sponge, adding a sense of wringing. Maybe that fluid that we're moving through, that liquid atmosphere, gets soaked into our pores and into our flesh, and we use this wringing as a way to empty it out. If you're not sure about what the wringing filter means, just think about that sensation of when you wring out a towel or a sponge. Putting that into different parts, rotating an arm and having a sense of wringing out through that arm. Rotating through a leg and having a sense of wringing out.
Using this song to wring out every last drop. Really, almost to the point where it becomes difficult to move quickly between different crystallizations. It's like the air around us thickens and hardens. It becomes viscous, like peanut butter or coconut oil. How do we pass that through with our fingers, carving out that space? Carving out that space with our toes, with our tail, with our jaw. And on top of this now, crystallizing so much, we're going to count backwards from 10 to 0. And at 0, you're going to be so crystallized that you can't even move in the container around you. So starting at 10, crystallizing, pushing against 9. Thinking about the internal body pushing out 3-dimensionally, the ribs pushing front, back, side. The pelvis pushing front, back, side. 8. 7. The jaw, the roof of the mouth, the throat, the domes of the feet. 6. 5. 4. 3. Crystallizing so much now you can barely move out of this container. 2. 1 and 0, just letting go, just coming into a little scrub on the body, scrubbing down the shoulders, scrubbing down the shoulders, down one arm, in between both fingers, and back up. Getting under both armpits. And now taking a second to scrub the chest. Breathing into the lungs, scrubbing in the front, across the clavicle, along the backs of the rib cage, along the back of the big plates of the pelvis, the sacrum, along the sides, along the front, and down one leg. And up the other one. Drawing it back up the center of the body, under the chin, and into the scalp. Give yourself a little scalp massage here. Maybe close your eyes. Starting to feel how you can send the fingers down, although we're not allowed to touch our faces. Just finding the ridges of of our cheekbone. Now that we've moved from scrubbing into identifying bony landmarks, just using your fingers like little x-rays along the ridges of bone, along the jawline, along the clavicles. Just imagining the little internal computing that your touch is doing in your mind right now. Along the shoulder blades, along the breastplates and the ridges of the ribs. Feeling that space where the diaphragm expands. And feeling how we can also pull the pelvis down away. Pushing, rooting into the feet. And taking this out and off the body. Kind of where we began. And letting these kind of brushings turn into our kind of closing dance with our hands, finding the language of our arms.
Letting this closing dance and this final song be for you. Let it be for you in the space that you're in. Sensing all the things that have come through your physical and mental and spiritual during this time together. Letting this closing dance be like a soft song or lullaby that you're going to sing to yourself. Painting the space around you with the remnants of your practice, all the things that filtered through your form.
Continuing your dance and closing your lullaby. And we just want to take this time to thank you for joining in with us, for moving with us through this. We will be offering the same practice on Wednesday at 6 and also on Sunday at 6. We're fine-tuning how we do this, so thank you for sticking with us. Thank you for breathing and moving through worlds with us. Thank you for AJ for being in the space with us as we juggled the technicalities of doing a live class.
yeah, I want to thank you all for joining us again. We definitely this is new territory for Anna and I, so we had some mic trouble, we had some video trouble, but I felt you all and your energy, and I just want to thank you again for hanging in there with us. Join us on the 25th and the 29th of March at the same time, and we'll go through class again.
All of the music that you heard was our own music, so it's music that we've released over the past 7 years. You can find some of it on Spotify, Apple Music, and some of it on our Bandcamp for a small donation. We also ask that if you are able in this time to shoot us some bucks on the platforms. We're all kind of sustaining ourselves through this community, and it's been really amazing to give to each other in the ways that we can. If you are able to give, our Venmo is at slowdanger. You can also give on PayPal at paypal.me/slowdanger, and you can also have a tax deductible donation on our the link in my bio. We love you all. I'm sorry we weren't able to read any of the comments while we're moving, but we love you all, and thank you for coming by. There will be more. We're also maybe doing some live music sets in the next 2 weeks, so keep posted. Thank you.